Hi everyone, Evan Thompson here. I'm Editor-in-Chief and National Writer at Sport Relay. Prior to joining Sport Relay, I was at Last Word on Baseball. During my time there, back in June of 2022, I filmed the first 2 episodes of Reliever Roundup and Bullpen Bonanza. It is now February of 2025, and with the launch of the Trade Trees videos, as well as the birth of Sport Relay's channel on Rumble, I've decided to reshoot the 2 Reliever Roundup and Bullpen Bonanza episodes. What follows is a blast from the past. Enjoy. In today's installment of Reliever Roundup and Bullpen Bonanza, we're going to look at a statistic I developed after the 2021 season to better measure the effectiveness of relievers in keeping runs off the board, the scoreless outing percentage. The way we measure effectiveness of pitchers in keeping runs off the board right now is earned run average, or ERA. To calculate ERA, take the number of earned runs a pitcher allows, meaning it didn't score with the aid of an error, multiply that number by 9, and divide it by the number of innings pitched. Round the answer to 2 decimal places. When you look at how this statistic is calculated, you can see this statistic was intended for starters. It was invented during a time when most pitchers either were expected to or did pitch the full 9-inning game. If a pitcher was pulled, it was usually because he was no longer effective. Sometimes he was pulled because they needed a late inning pinch hitter to try and get back in the game or tie it or take the lead. So since the statistic was designed for starters, it does a great job in showing how effective starters are at keeping runs off the board. But for relievers, ERA is patently unfair. Relievers generally pitch an inning at a time, 2 innings tops. So one bad outing can ruin their ERA for a month or more, especially if they have an outing where they only pitch a fractional inning, or the dreaded outing where they get charged with runs but don't record any outs. Fractional innings are interesting. We often see these early on in the season. For example, if a pitcher allows, say, 3 earned runs but only records 1 out, that means he pitched a third of an inning. Well, when we divide by fractions, what do? We invert the fraction and then multiply it. So if you give up 3 earned runs but only record 1 out, 3 times 9 is 27, divided by a third, which is the same as multiplying it by 3, gives you 81. That's an insanely high ERA. So what the scoreless outing percentage does is this. A reliever's job is to put up a 0. Go in the game, keep runs off the board, then pass the baton to the next guy in line. If you're the closer, then it's your job to end the game without giving up any runs. So I figured, hey, why don't we have a statistic that measures simply how well a reliever does his job? So the scoreless outing percentage operates for relievers the same way the quality start does for a starter. The quality start basically answers the question of, did the starting pitcher do his job? That's what the scoreless outing percentage does for relievers. It answers the question, did the reliever do his job? Did he put up a 0? The first step in figuring out the scoreless outing percentage is figuring out how many scoreless outings a reliever had. To do this, we simply look at the pitcher's line in the box score and see if he had any runs charged to him. If the answer is no runs were charged to him, congratulations, it's a scoreless outing. If there were runs charged to him, it wasn't a scoreless outing. Now, if the only runs charged to the reliever in that appearance were unearned, we have a separate column where we make that note. But it still does not count as a scoreless outing. However, a different statistic I created, scoreless outing percentage, earned runs only, doesn't hold these against the pitcher. To figure out the scoreless outing percentage, we take the number of scoreless outings a reliever has, divided by his total games in relief, convert our decimal to a percentage, meaning you move the decimal point 2 spots to the right, and voila, we have the scoreless outing percentage. In order to reduce the probability of ties with this statistic, take it out to 1 decimal place. Instead of saying 66%, say 66.4%. To give you an illustration of how unfair ERA can be to relievers, let's look at some scenarios. This one's a hypothetical. Let's say we have a middle reliever named Charles. In Charles's first appearance of the season, he comes into the game with 2 outs in the 7th inning, his team leading by 1, bases loaded, and the opponent's RBI leader from the previous season at the plate. Charles strikes this guy out. He's pitched a third of an inning and has put up a 0 right there. And let's say he stays in the game for another inning and pitches a 1, 2, 3, 8th. So now Charles on the season so far has 1 1/3 innings pitched, no earned runs, for an ERA of 0. Let's say in his second outing of the season, he comes into the game in the 7th, and it's a tie game. Bases are empty. His opponent's home run leader from the previous season is at the plate. Charles gets him to pop up. Then he pitches a 1, 2, 3, 8th again. So now Charles for the season has 2 2/3 innings pitched and an ERA of 0 because he hasn't allowed any runs to score yet. Now say that in his next 4 appearances, he pitches a 1, 2, 3, 8th each time. So he's now at 6 2/3 innings, no earned runs, and his ERA is still 0. His 7th game doesn't go so well. He enters the game in the 8th, gives up 2 broken bat singles, and then gives up a 3-run home run. Then the manager comes out and pulls him. He didn't record an out. So he still has 6 2/3 innings pitched, but now has 3 earned runs allowed. That one bad inning has taken his ERA from 0 to 4.05. People who don't know the game-by-game details of his season may look at that ERA and say, 4.05? That's not a very good ERA. This guy stinks. Come on. But the people who have watched him the whole season will know he's been lights out. He just had one bad night. That's where the scoreless outing percentage will help paint a complete picture. They'll know that 6 of his 7 outings were scoreless, which equals 85.7%. That is a really good scoreless outing percentage when considering that almost every year the league average is around 69 or 70%. In order for Charles to get his ERA back under 2, which is where a lot of people will look at his ERA and go, hey, it will take him another 7 scoreless innings. If he pitches 1 scoreless inning per appearance, how long will that take him? He's not going to pitch every day, so it won't take him a week. It'll probably take him between 2 and 3 weeks. That's where the scoreless outing percentage will act as an error correction. People can look at that and see, oh, he just had one bad game. Okay, this guy's really good. Now let's take a real-world example of how 2 pitches can, as Zach Buchanan put it during his time at The Athletic, nuke a reliever's ERA. Take right-handed middle reliever J.B. Wendelken, currently in the San Diego Padres organization on a minor league contract. In 2021, J.B. joined the Arizona Diamondbacks late in the season, mid-August. He made 20 appearances for them, pitching 18 2/3 innings, mostly late in the game. In 18 of those outings, J.B. gave up 4 earned runs across 17 innings. That works out to an ERA of 2.12. It's a good ERA by any measure. In the other 2 outings, he gave up a 3-run walk-off home run in Denver, which puts him in good company, and he gave up a 2-run home run in Seattle in a game where he still got the save. Those 2 pitches took his ERA from 2.12 to 4.34. But if you look at his scoreless outing percentage, you'll see that he was an effective reliever in 2021 because with the Diamondbacks, 15 of his 20 appearances were scoreless. That's 75%. The National League average in 2021 was 69.4%. Now, as with any statistic, there are limitations. We're going to partially compensate for that here. Sometimes a reliever will enter the game with runners on base. Those are somebody else's runs since another pitcher was the one pitching when these guys got on. The incoming pitcher calls these runners inherited runners. A reliever's job is to put up a 0 no matter what. It doesn't matter whose responsibility those runs are. The reliever's job is to keep them from scoring. So I have created another column in the stat table next to the scoreless outing. The way I abbreviate it is IOTG. That indicates an outing where he lets an inherited runner score, but doesn't let any runs score that are charged to him. This still goes down as a scoreless outing, but we're making a note to the side, so to speak. What we do after that is take his scoreless outings, subtract the IOTGs, or the number of scoreless outings where an inherited runner scored, and the result is called the True Scoreless Outing. Thank you to Derek Montilla from PHNX Sports for helping me come up with that name. Or TScOtg. Then we figure out a percentage the same way we figured out the scoreless outing percentage. Take the true scoreless outings, divide them by the games in relief, convert the decimal answer to a percentage, take it out to 1 decimal place, and that's the true scoreless outing percentage. So what do we do with the scoreless outing percentage? We put it next to the reliever's ERA as a supplement. If one reliever gives up a solo home run and another gives up a 3-run home run, there still needs to be a way to differentiate between the two. We don't have anything other than ERA to do so. Remember also that numbers mean little without context. So be sure you have the league average handy and put the league average next to a reliever's scoreless outing percentage for reference. A key note here, even with the schedule adopted in 2023, and with teams now playing 6 games instead of 4 against their designated interleague rivals, something that's new for 2025, the two leagues don't play each other very often. 48 games out of 162, while more than double the 20 interleague games played prior to the current scheduling format, is still lower than 30%, so don't use the Major League average. Use the American League or the National League average instead, depending on whichever league the pitcher is in. My goal is to make it where the statistics show more. The whole goal of statistics is to paint a complete picture of what happened on the field. Scoreless outing percentage will go a long way toward accomplishing that goal with relievers. Scoreless outing percentage hasn't fully caught on yet, but it's starting to make a slow move into the mainstream of the sports world. In fact, Chris Welsh of the Cincinnati Reds television broadcast crew, he's the color commentator, mentioned this statistic on the air. I had a conversation with him on the Monday of the Diamondback series with the Reds in June of 2022, and he mentioned it on the Tuesday game when Joe Manaply entered the game, so it's starting to gain traction. Thank you for watching this episode. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like. Click subscribe so you'll never miss an episode of this show or of our other show, Trade Trees. Tell your friends and baseball contacts. If you haven't done so yet, consider buying my books, A Complete History of the Major League Baseball Playoffs, Volume 1 and Volume 2. There are links in the description box below this video. And finally, bookmark and regularly visit sportrelay.com. Until next time, this is Evan Thompson saying so long for now.